Everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Real Deal New York City Forum 2025. We are here at the innovation stage. My name is Seth Rogin. I know, not that one. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of The Real Deal, and it's really my pleasure today to be here with Matias Recchia of Keyway AI. You know, obviously AI has been a subject on everybody's conversation today, that and the economy probably together. Hopefully we'll cover a little bit of both. But for those, I think there are some Keyway users that are here in the audience today, but for those that aren't, Matias, tell us a little bit, how would you describe Keyway to everybody?
Keyway is a company that develops software based on AI that serves asset managers, property managers, and investors in real estate. We leverage public information to develop solutions for revenue management, document management, and most of the day-to-day activities that asset managers, investors, and property managers need help with.
So there's a lot of talk about AI, and I should say I have a specific interest in this. I chair a program at a university around the future of marketing that's very AI focused, and I cannot tell you how many people are stopping me today and throughout all of our work saying that they have the next big AI tool. And I think anyone who has anything vaguely algorithmic is calling it AI. So, you know, everyone believes in the automation of processes and the idea of LLMs for customer service. We're hearing a lot right now about agentic AI as well. Keyway is applying machine learning to complete the entire real estate process in a different way. So who should be using Keyway and why?
Yeah, so I truly do think that AI is the most revolutionary thing that has happened to real estate since Excel. You know, if you think about the last couple of iterations of technology, they have not been that relevant for real estate in general. You know, data centers and the cloud, you know, it doesn't matter really if you're a real estate investor, if your data is hosted on a cloud or in private servers.
Sure.
The internet is interesting and you can access a lot of information, but it really doesn't fundamentally change how you underwrite a deal. AI brings a whole new set of possibilities and gives you software that works the way in which you work instead of kind of like the clunky old software that all of us that have worked in real estate are used to having. I think the previous generation of real estate was putting you behind the screen. You were supposed to be not shaking hands, not doing deals. If you're in property management, you're not spending time with your tenants. You're behind the computer, completing things and, you know, following the steps that the software required. AI really changes that. And for the first time, you can have all of the data that you have as a property manager or as an investor talk with all of the publicly available data that exists out there as one another. So kind of like a couple of products that we offer on Keyway. One is a revenue management product for multifamily owners and operators in which we only leverage public information. So we scrape every website for every property in all of the US, every review site for all properties in the US, and we allow you to compare not only rents, but also amenities, customer sentiment, and help you manage your building much more efficiently only by using public data. And one of the things that we figured out, because we have some very large property managers, some of the largest property managers and asset managers in the US using our platform, is leveraging public information. You can get more accurate results that some other firms that use private information. And that's only possible because of AI, because you can, with these large language models, if you build the right guardrails and you train the data in a consistent way, you can get outputs that are very, very accurate.
So can we talk about that? That sounds a little bit like I'm searching publicly available data. And yes, technically, you know, I'm using a language model to look at it, but what is the system actually learning to get better and to give me a competitive edge?
So the system is it's a couple of things. One is just like the large language models per se are amazing, you know, feasts of technology. So, you know, ChatGPT from OpenAI, Claude from Anthropic, Gemini from Google, they're amazing. And they're amazing at interpreting language. They're not necessarily amazing at specific uses of the technology. Kind of like it's almost a joke, right? If you have some symptoms and you don't feel great, it's like, don't go and Google your symptoms. I think if you're in real estate and you just go to ChatGPT, it's like, well, don't just go to ChatGPT, upload an OM and ask it to underwrite it, because it may come with like very random answers. So a lot of what we do at Keyway is train data sets with specific data. So rent rolls is something that we manage, leases, loans. You build guardrails around them, and you also create them in a way in which there's what's called zero temperature. So you train the AI to never make up anything. So a lot of things we get asked, how accurate is your system? Let's say we have another product that handles all of documents. So kind of like all your leases, loans, create loan abstracts, etc. And it's 100% accurate because we've trained it with zero temperature. So if it doesn't know the answer, or if not certain about specific answer, it will tell you, I do not have a specific answer for this. These are sections that you should look at. And with real estate in particular, it's just like, that's a very important part of it. It's just like, it needs to be accurate. It needs to be certain.
So we've all been in management meetings for whatever company where someone says, well, why aren't you using AI for this? And you're pointing out something that I don't think gets talked about a lot, which is the importance of context, right? Because saying to someone, well, just pump it into ChatGPT and get an answer, you could actually wind up doing damage. You could actually wind up finding very general information that isn't necessarily trained on your business context. So why is that business context so important, and why does that differentiate Keyway?
Yeah, there are two things that matter, and this is true for Keyway, and this is true for other AI-based softwares that do different things associated with real estate or legal. One is context is important because you need to teach the system and the AI what the expected output is and how to interpret certain numbers and how to interpret, certain text. Then you need to train it so that it's truly AI and not machine learning. And the second piece of it that's very important is the security associated with this. I do think public information is great, and public information gives you a lot of great answers, but a lot of the power and a lot of the value that many people, I guess, here and investors have is the private data that they own. If you just upload your private data to ChatGPT, to Gemini, to Anthropic, you call it, it's public data. It's used to train models, and it's out there, and it'll be searchable one way or another. So something that's important for AI tools is there's something that's called SOC 2 compliance. And what that means is that the companies that follow this standard create a private sandbox for each customer. So you can take advantage of the data that has been trained with publicly available data, and then you can train that with your own data to get insights that are associated with the properties that you own or with the deals that you've looked at in the past and your views on those deals and so on.
And so we hear a lot about AI right now in the multifamily space, right, in the residential space, but we haven't really heard about it in the CRE space. I know there's a lot of people here today and watching at home right now that are interested in the CRE space. And I know you and I were talking a few months back, and you said that CRE is very ripe for disruption right now with AI. Why do you think that is?
If multifamily, I think it's the first step, and that's where at Keyway we're spending a lot of time. And the reason for that is with MLSs, there's just a ton of information out there. Reviews, rents, just like Zillow, Trulia, etc. So these like B2C type data is just like fully available on the internet, and it's a matter of having that data talk to each other. The census tract, talk to the rent, traffic information, insurance information, and things like that. And you can have all of that data talking to each other very easily. When you start going to commercial real estate, a lot of these leases are not public. A lot of the terms of the leases are not public. A lot of the rent information that is published, it's not really the rent that's being paid by the tenants and things like that. So that's when AI becomes much more interesting, because you need to start guessing what's going on with a particular building by looking at foot traffic going past that building, business addresses that are associated with that building, new expenses that are done by credit cards that have that building as an address, percent of occupancy in a parking lot that's in that building or right next to that building. So, it's like the more creative you get in terms of data sources that you can put together, that can give you a better sense of what's happening at that particular location and what's possible in that particular location, which I think it's the interesting. It's not only with AI, it's not only about how do I measure the performance of my building, what's going on in my building, how do I get better at managing my building? But it's also around what else can I do here, whether it's multifamily and I have a gym. Do people really value the gym, or should I have a children's playground here because a lot of the tenants in buildings around it have children and they rate that as extremely high, and those buildings are getting higher rent than me. Similarly, if I have an office building, should I spend money on having some green spaces around it, or should I should I make sure that the coffee shop that's in my ground floor is a trendy coffee shop because randomly that seems to drive higher rents than any other amenities that I may put in my building? And you can just harness that data, and it's almost like it's allowing us to boil the ocean to get insights. That's really what's happening. It's like looking at a lot of data and figuring out, are there correlations here or they're not correlations, and what's related to and what's not related to the performance of an asset.
Right. I mean, this business is so much both who you know and what you know, and it feels like the tool is taking a lot of that what you know information, all the things that we call around and ask friends, and how do you compete, and how are you following places like The Real Deal and elsewhere to really understand what's happening in the industry. Now, Keyway is really pulling so many different information sources into one place.
It's almost trying to replicate this sense of, when people are like, oh, I just know this blog and that corner never worked. You're right, but there are reasons why that corner never worked, right? And this allows you to start understanding that a little bit better. I do not think AI replicates people's edge in real estate. It's like a great property manager that's engaging with tenants and that gives amazing tours and explains the neighborhood to people. I don't think that's replicated by AI. I think AI allows that property manager to stop spending time behind their computer, filling paperwork and just like adding the latest numbers and running reports, and instead being in the front, spending time with the tenants. Same thing with deal makers. AI is not necessarily great at, there may be some AI that's good at negotiating, but at the end of the day, we like doing deals with people, right? If you're a real estate person, you're a crafter of deals, you convince people to buy an apartment, to invest in a project, you sell a dream to someone. There's nothing here, but there's going to be this beautiful tower here with great views and so on. And there are systems like the one we just see that enhance that. But at the end of the day, there's deal making. What this allows you to do is just like, let's be done with the boring stuff. It's just like the paperwork, the lease abstracts, the reviewing whether a loan covenant that you're about to sign, if you've ever signed something like that before, if someone that owns a building like yours has signed something like that before, you shouldn't be spending tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees just to review old loans. You shouldn't be paying tens of thousands of dollars to get lease abstracts. You shouldn't be paying a consulting firm, thousands of dollars to review 300 leases in an offshore location. Those are things that AI is today very, very good at doing. And Keyway, for example, has specific solutions that serve that.
Yeah, it's not that it replaces competitive edge, but it feels like rocket fuel on top of it, right? Because any moment I'm not spending on doing that research and the research is being done for me gives me a competitive edge because I'm starting on third base, right? And if we like to say time is money. No, time is everything. And so if something else can give me all of that time back so that I can spend my time on the human parts of real estate, it actually does give me, I think, a massive competitive edge. So when you're thinking about that, I know you know everything that's in Keyway now. What aren't you automating that you think will come next?
Yeah. So the things that we're not automating yet is a lot of what we're doing. It's what in the industry is called agentic AI. So it's AI that follows a specific workflow. An example for this is for multifamily pricing. You tell us how you want to price your building. Are you going through a lease-up strategy? Do you want to optimize revenues? Are you optimizing for occupancy, for example? And then the system takes all of the public data around it and proposes rent levels for specific apartments with specific features, with specific square footage and things like that. But we're not pricing the apartments. We're not automating the pricing. A human comes and a human decides with the data that's put in front of them, what the price is.
Right.
The same thing with loan documents. We're preparing tables. You upload all of your loan docs or you upload all of your leases. It creates a lease abstract. It provides recommendations, but a human is making the final call or sending the email to the lawyers. Something that we think it's going to come to the industry once people are more comfortable with it. It's just like automating a lot of that. It's like creates a lease abstract, sends it to the lawyers replies, reviews it, it's like send, and it tells you it's ready to sign. But I think it's gonna take some time to get there, not because the technology is not there, but because all of us as users need to get a little more comfortable with it before we allow what's called like agent-to-agent automation.
Yeah, I mean, we have to trust it, right? And agentic AI, someone was saying to me the other day, what if the product you're selling, you're not selling to human beings anymore, right? What if your bot is selling it to someone else's bot, right?
I think that's, look, and this is not specifically related to what we do, but we do part of it, let's say pricing for multifamily. I think very soon, people that use our software for pricing, we will connect with the big MLSs. So, a new unit is open, Keyway software prices. We can integrate via APIs with Zillow, Trulia, whatever other MLS you want. The apartment is priced. The description is there. The reviews are answered by our system. But I think it's not far away. I don't know why Zillow is not doing it yet. Like, there should be an agentic broker at Zillow or some other firms where it's telling me, hey, I want an apartment in Chelsea with good light that's, 1 bedroom, ideally above 800 square foot. And I would like the building to have a gym or a gym nearby. Find me the apartment, schedule for me 3 tours tomorrow. It's like, that's something that AI could do.
Something tells me there's
an
a broker
agent
or two.
talking to an agent.
Something tells me there's a broker or two here in the audience who feels they already do that. And I think it is something we're hearing percolate now, right? Is full AI integration into a lot of those brokerage tools. So, but you talked about the importance of people trying AI in their business. I mean, let's be honest, like we're in this time of real economic challenge. We all see, or many of us see, some storm clouds down the road. Interest rates today did not move, right, as of about an hour ago. So in an economy like this, people can be more tentative about investing in new tools. So how do you view that? How do you respond to that challenge of, I've got to retract right now and go back to the basics, and now's not the time for me to experiment with AI?
Look, I think it's the opposite. I think the AI tools that are out there are going to help you, whether you're a property manager or an asset manager, are going to help you save money. So we're seeing a ton of traction with asset managers, with property managers, with investors as well. And the reason for that is we're helping them save money. We're helping them save money in external consultants. We're helping them save money in legal fees. We're helping them save money on pre-underwriting deals, so you're not wasting time and effort on deals that you're not going to end up closing because there's some environmental contingency that was reported 4 years ago and we can get access to it and you don't have to wait until you do a full due diligence. So I think the way to think about it is like, what are pockets where I'm spending money and where, and trying to ask yourself or talk to peers, are there solutions that can provide me better results, help me make decisions faster, or help me make money? I agree with you. I think you shouldn't be testing AI for the sake of testing AI. You should be going after pockets of money that you're investing or that you're spending and figuring out how can I reduce that or how can I be more efficient at this. And the thing I never get tired of saying is, if you're experimenting with AI, ChatGPT is great. I use it. I use Anthropic. I use Claude. I use all of these things. But if you're going to expose your private data, your rent roll, your leases, I just wouldn't do it there, in the same way in which I will use a system for medical records, but I will not just upload my medical records to ChatGPT. I will not upload my Amex bill to ChatGPT. I will upload it to a Karma solution or Create Karma or whatever it's out there that has the right security compliance protocols. So the way in which we think about it is, software that uses AI should be as safe as a bank. So kind of like that's the standard. It's like you should feel as comfortable sharing stuff as you're sharing stuff with JP Morgan or Chase.
And can I feel that way with Keyway in terms of security?
We spend a lot of time, effort, and money on that. And their security protocols are out there. So SOC 2 is kind of like the gold standard for these. So I'll say if you're testing stuff, make sure it has. If you're testing stuff with private data or data that's sensitive or data that you think gives you an edge or data that you don't want to be out there or to be trained on, SOC 2 compliance is the standard for it right now.
I've co-taught a class over the last couple of years that's around driving disruptive growth, and we teach CEOs how to digitally transform their businesses. And one of the things that comes up the most is, okay, I'm successful. I've been in the same industry for 20 or 30 years. I know how to run my business. I really want to hire a data science team. I have no idea what to ask them in the interview. Right? I have no idea. How would you possibly know if you're not a data scientist and you're interviewing data scientists to come work at your company, you have no idea how to really tell if they're qualified or not. It feels like when I've met some of the folks from your team that you're almost like an outsourced data science team for someone who has an established business. How does that work?
Yeah. First of all, I will argue unless you're a quant fund, and we actually do work with several quant funds that invest in real estate, don't have a data science team. Most firms do not need a data science team, but our software acts as an outsourced data science team because we have trained data, we have access to all of the public data, and then we can combine that private data with sources of data that you pay for. We can add to that data your own data, and we can combine it in what's called a private sandbox, so within private walls for your company. And that way you can harness public data, you can combine it with your data, and you can test your own hypothesis on it. But I would say data scientists are super expensive, they're on demand, and I agree, for most firms that do 3, 5, 10 deals a year, it's probably not a great use
and
of
even more expensive
money and
if you
effort.
get it wrong. Right? Because suddenly you've trusted your business with someone you weren't really sure about hiring them, but they talk a good talk in the interview. I'd much rather go to a trusted source that knows what they're doing and has built the context of the tool.
Yeah, and I think something that AI is not going to change is what made you successful will continue to make you successful. What made people successful in real estate is the ability to have a vision, to rethink, just like what a neighborhood can become, what a building can become, being a charismatic seller, and convincing people that this is a great building to live in, even though it may not be. That has happened to me in the receiving side. Sometimes it's just like, that's a great broker will do that.
Sure.
100%. I want to live here, even though I don't want to live there.
There's power in persuasion.
So, just like what AI is really good at now, and what I think it's exciting for professionals in real estate is at taking care of all of the other stuff, the stuff that you're paying consultants, the stuff that you're paying lawyers, the stuff that you're paying, that you're outsourcing, and that kind of like painful back office, document management, revenue management software, and making that easier to use, cheaper, much more flexible, and software that adapts to the way in which you work instead of forcing you to go through. It is pretty great. If you think about the software that's now in the industry, it's just like it takes 6 months to implement all this stuff.
Sure.
It's just like, hey, come, sit, and now we're going to tell you how to do your job, and it's going to be 4 months of implementation, and no, you cannot work in the way in which you work. You have to work in this way because a software developer thought that was the way in which you, who know how to do your job, need to work. And at Keyway, but just like by definition, AI-first companies change that because at the core of it is understanding of language and the fact that the software can be adapted to different workflows that mimic the way in which you work. And I think that's very, very powerful.
Okay, so I know we're going to run out of time. One last thing. If there's someone in the audience today or someone watching the video at home or in their office is thinking, okay, I know I want to get started with AI. I'm not ready to make a big investment. What's your advice on how they should get started?
I will say if you're an asset manager or a property manager, reach to us at Keyway, and we can give you kind of like free access and allow you to pilot the platform for a couple of weeks. Whether you end up using it or not, it will familiarize you with kind of like what it can be done. In particular, our product Key Docs, which is document management, ingestion, summarization, etc. If you're not even ready to do that, I will say definitely use ChatGPT or Claude of one of these free agents. Just share data that you're like very comfortable playing around and being exposed out there. And just be careful because those models are not trained specifically for real estate. So the answers that you may get and the formats that you may get for those answers may not be relevant to what you do. So we've seen some people telling us, "Oh, I've tried, AI, just like doesn't work, it doesn't understand it. It's complex." It's like, well, it's complex and it doesn't understand it if it hasn't been trained with the right data and the guardrails are not there. So that's why there are specific solutions for legal, specific solutions for customer management, specific solutions for medical uses, and and specific solutions for real estate. And even within real estate, there are things we do. There are things such as tenant tours and tenant scheduling, which is other companies like Elise AI, for example, do that's outside of the scope. So it's also not one size fits all.
Context matters.
Keyway,
That's what we're hearing. Listen, you wouldn't go to ESPN to get your real estate news. And I wouldn't just go to a general interest AI app. I'm not going on Perplexity, as much as I love Perplexity, to get advice on real estate.
Also,
Context
Perplexity just recently announced that they're going to take all of your data, never delete it, and use it to sell you ads.
Okay, I no longer like
anything you search in Perplexity will be there forever. So that's said by their CEO, by the way.
Well, context matters. Thank you, Matias, very much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.